right now, we are discussing they just had an update on that Brown University shooter because we know the manhunt continues. Who they thought was the person of interest was released, and now they said they believe it was definitely a targeted attack at Brown University. And they're looking for potential motives, but they said there is a manhunt, well armed and dangerous.
That's right. So the individual they initially took into custody for questioning, they had released. We are now into the 4th day of this manhunt after this attack at Brown University, which killed 2 individuals. One was a sophomore. She was 19 years old. And the other was an 18-year-old freshman who was a naturalized citizen from Uzbekistan. And what we see now is that the leads seem to be less than they maybe had at the beginning. And they are searching for someone they released new video of where you could not see the face of the individual, but there was definitely some characteristics about him, whether it be the way the individual walked, they could tell the height of the individual. They put this out with a $50,000 reward for information. But at this point, it seems like they are chasing down leads, but not with a lot of success at this point. Yep. We will see what comes up out of this. The 19-year-old from Birmingham, Alabama, she was the vice president of the college Republicans there. The other individual, Mohammad Aziz Umarazokov, was a Uzbek national that was naturalized in the U.S. and aspired to be a doctor. But we are now seeing what hopefully is not a trend after what we saw in Utah with Charlie Kirk, where there was someone who targeted a university. And instead of what has historically, unfortunately, been the case in the United States, where someone goes on a killing spree and then ends up being killed either by themselves or police in their attack, people are now leaving and fleeing, and the police are having a hard time catching these individuals.
Unique facts, right? It's a weekend at a university going into exams, as we were talking about. So we don't know if this was an exam review. We don't know if this was a club meeting. We do know that one of the individuals killed was the vice chair of the Brown College Republicans. Right. So was it? But I feel like if it was a meeting like that, it was so direct, like there was a direct tie to politics, they probably would say something because that might help people think, okay, do I know someone who has that connection to Brown and didn't like this group or people in that group? But then, we also know there's 8 others injured. They're being, I think, it's an Ivy League institution. They're being very quiet about what they're releasing, and so is the community. I mean, that video that we saw, that is not, you'd have to really know who that person is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really know how someone walked.
Yes. Yeah. Because they're fully, and also they've got a lot of layers on. So I think it's we know it gets more difficult for law enforcement. They always say first 48 hours, and then it
gets really tough.
Really tough, especially if the person is not in the area and you don't have. We don't know the amount of tips that are coming in. We don't know the amount of information. We don't know what the survivors were able to see either. Like, who were they able to describe?
There's a lot of details that have not been released.
Doesn't seem like at least they had a name. Yeah. So the people who were in that room who were able to speak to the police, who were maybe injured but able to talk, doesn't seem like they were immediately identified who this was.
No, and I think when you have a situation like this, look, there are those moments where we'll look at what just happened with the January 6th bomber, where 4 or 5 years down the road, you have the right team in place, details emerge, they can do their job. It's not impossible, but I know that this is it becomes stressful, I'm sure, as people. Look, the school's got to be essentially closed for Christmas break, I would assume at this point.
They are not having exams in person, so whether the different professors may be doing things different ways, but they've canceled that. The remainder of the semester, it is closed on campus for any learning or examinations.
Anyway.
Right, exactly.
This was probably the last week.
Maybe
a couple. Sometimes you had a couple exams that would go into this late. That's probably what this was probably a group of students coming together to study for an exam.
Yeah. It's really a tragedy, and it's been, like I said, it's been certainly a rough few days over the past weekend and into now Tuesday here for all of what's going on.
We have that we're able to finish out Hanukkah and go into Christmas without more of these mass incidents.
This is what's happening around the country. At the same time, you have the FBI thwarting a terrorist attack in Los Angeles on New Year's Eve from a group that probably would be another one of these. Thankfully,
yes, they're the thing says pro-Palestinian.
Thankfully, we have an FBI that's doing their jobs in that sense and are trying to stop these kind of things from occurring. when there's these big coordinated attacks that look like we're going to happen with IEDs, and we're probably going to learn more about that coming up. So and then of course you have the tragedy of Rob Reiner and his wife. It just feels like the week has been heavy. Very heavy. And you don't want that, understandably, in the week before Christmas. You don't want that as a week before New Year's Eve. This is the holiday season for everyone right now. And I understand that turning on the news can be very difficult. Turning on your television just to see tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. And you may wonder, what is it that I can do? And of course, we have resources. We have ways that you can help. And I encourage you to go to aclj.org just to look at some of the resources that we have. That hopefully will help you out here. But I understand it's tough. Of course, as I've also said, it's an important time to not only be vigilant, but to raise your voice to make sure that you are being heard. That is something the ACLJ has been fighting for decades. Freedom of speech has always been the forefront of what the ACLJ does, and it couldn't be more necessary than right now. Honestly, we always say, how do you fight back against speech is with more speech, and it's a dark time out there for a lot of people, even though we're heading into the holidays, and I hope some of you can at least relax, enjoy time with your friends and family. But for a lot of people, that's just simply not going to be an easy case, specifically if you are, whether you're in the Jewish community over Hanukkah, or whether you're in the Christian community and you're worried about where you're going to be going on Christmas Eve services, or you're going to be worried about going to, a lot of people had their tree lighting ceremonies last week, and you see congregants of hundreds of thousands of people, and you're going to do special events. Of course, it's in the back of our minds always, and that's really a shame. What I'm hoping, though, is that we have a group of people who can come in and make sure that we don't feel like this way permanently. But one of the most important things is to make sure that you are one of the louder people as well, that we aren't silenced out of fear. And I want to encourage you to support one of our new projects. Again, I'm going to be talking about this a lot because I really do believe in it. A few months ago, when our team started showing me some of the footage that they had been capturing of some of the great stories, of course, the bigger global issue of the freedom of speech that is happening right now, and the censorship that's happening right now, and where some of the louder voices are the ones that are doing it for clicks and are not the ones that are doing it because they truly feel the call to this. So I encourage you, if you want to raise your voice, this is Raise Your Voice Week here as we start to head to the very end of the year. And like I've said, December is the most important month for the ACLJ in terms of fundraising. It's true for all organizations. But right now, all your donations are doubled. We had a big day yesterday because this team's put together this really just sample of what it could look like. And it motivated our team to say, you know what, I think we can take this to the next level. I'm going to encourage you. Go to aclj.org/voice. And that is if you want to have your name appear in the credits of this project as a founding producer, because this doesn't happen without you. It is called The Chilling Effect, A War on Free Speech. That's the working title. Of course, projects take time. You never know where it may end up, but that's currently the working title, is The Chilling Effect. And that's because that seems to be the phrase that keeps coming up over and over and over again when the team is doing these interviews, that whether it is a representative, whether it's a senator, whether it's somebody who is on the streets, the chilling effect of the censorship of free speech. That seems to be a phrase that's repeated over and over.
I was with Senator Bill Haggerty, is one of those that we filed the FOIA on behalf of. We're working on some other legal potential moves there with the Arctic Frost and their phone records being subpoenaed, even though the speech and debate clause should prevent that from ever happening. And I'm not going to name the company that did it, but there's issues with the companies as well that they didn't push back, because the one company that did, Jack Smith, didn't even try to take to court because he knew they had the winning argument. And I will tell you, what are they trying to do when they subpoena a U.S. senator's phone records secretly without any notice to them? They're not a criminal. They're not under criminal investigation at all. They're trying to say, if we could do it to that U.S. senator, guess what we could do to you? Guess what we could do to your family? And Logan, what is that? Chilling speech. And that is why the ACLJ really fundamentally exists, is so speech is never chilled, because that's the ultimate goal of the totalitarians.